Well, let's get to this, shall we? West Wing quote. Again, it's pretty clear in the quote, without understanding who Sam Seaborn is, what the show is about, who President Bartlett is, what party do they belong to, what the quote's about. He is saying that, again, the rich benefit from these social programs and roads and civilization in general, which is what Warren said. Warren's quote just isn't dialogue from a TV show. It's from an actual speech she gave. And it's something I agree with, and it's something that my quote clearly agreed with. That was my point. You're not presenting a This is what's frustrating. You're not presenting a different point of view. You're presenting the same point of view. It just so happens you quoted a real person, and I quoted a line from a TV show because it's more succinct, and it kind of gets part of my point about the fair share argument about why it might not make sense. The 47% statistic is the next thing. Again, yes, I question their definition of fair share, because we're typically talking about federal income tax. That's typically what we are talking about when we're talking about taxing the rich more. You know, we're talking about putting more things under income tax, so they're paying paying what they need to be paying. Horizontal equity in terms of like and vertical equity for talking progressive taxation, which we are. So the federal income tax is mainly the thing we're dealing with here. It's also why I spent so much time discussing the definition of fair, because I don't know what is fair. I don't think anyone can truly know what fair is. We might have subjective opinions on it, but there's no objective standard that can ever define what is fair. That's why, the flat everyone that everyone pays a certain percentage of their income that's equal regardless of what they make is called the fair tax. I don't like that system, and I think it's unworkable. My point was, I don't think the rhetoric of the rich need to pay their fair share makes much sense, because they can easily point to statistics that show they pay more in taxes than other people do, or at least most of them do. What people should be arguing is that a progressive taxation system is necessary, and that rich people actually benefit, as do corporations, for that matter, if you were talking to a business owner, from having people who aren't sick, who aren't starving to death, and don't have to worry about what happens if grandmother gets cancer, or, my kid gets hit by a car? Will I be able to make my monthly rent or pay the mortgage and keep my house and still show up to work? They benefit from having well-educated workers. They benefit from having workers who don't have to miss work because they're sick or don't infect any other people, if they show up to work while sick because they're afraid of losing their jobs. And guess what? Programs like the Earned Income Tax Credit have a stimulative effect on the economy, which is why I've actually wasted, well, not wasted, but fuck it, I'll use that word because apparently it has been wasted on a lot of people. Why I argue for programs like that, or, what used to be the food stamp program, I think it's SNAP now. These things have a stimulative effect on local economies because people are able to get their basic needs met, and so this is why it's so frustrating, James. But you also say you never claim the rich don't pay their fair share. But you said in your first reply to me, quote, it expresses, it being OWS, its disdain for what it's fighting against. It is a daunting figure that kind of represents, as a whole, what we are fighting against. The idea that 1% of the nation owns so much of it, and that the 99% is in control of so little. In your big bank boycott video, you said it would be perfectly fine to destroy the economic system, which I find abhorrent, and another reason why I wouldn't support at least your version of Occupy Wall Street, because there is no unanimous view of what it actually is. And you say that we should choke the rich and the government off from their precious supply of money, which of course would be great when they started firing all these workers, people were unemployed, and the government didn't have any money to, pay for the social services that people depend on to live. Do you want grandma not to get her Social Security check? Is that what you're saying? Because if we cut off the supply of money, she's not getting her Social Security check and she's going to be dead. Just flat out. From Occupy Wall Street, Evacuate Walmart. Quote, the 99% is fed up with being pushed down. The 99% is fed up with being oppressed by the upper echelon holding all the money to themselves greedily while watching the poor starve in the motherfucking street. Then you say that there's nothing in Occupy Wall Street about this, and it's just a movement about... brain fart. It's just a movement about campaign finance reform. That's fundamentally not true. You say yourself, it's a leaderless movement. There are many things in Occupy Wall Street, many different sub-movements. Some people have tried to make this about police brutality now. There was also a lot of anti-war stuff in there too originally. Some of that's been forced out. You have the Ron Paul libertarians mixing with people who don't believe, the like uber socialist people who think the entire system needs to be destroyed. You have people who just want wealth inequality fixed and campaign finance reform. There's a lot of people in there. It's not a unified, solid movement, which has hurt you in a lot of ways because you haven't been able to get out a unified message, and it's very frustrating when you're actually talking about the movement because someone can say, "Oh, well, that's not what I think," and you can't really respond to it. But you said, that people in Occupy Wall Street aren't arguing that the rich don't pay their fair share, need to pay more, etc. Paul Krugman disagrees with you. He supported stuff like the Robin Hood tax. There's another article from the New York Times I'll link about the Robin Hood tax, about how people were protesting the G20 meeting in France, as well as when Occupy DC and Occupy Wall Street joined up to march from McPherson Square out and protest in front of the Treasury Department to try and get the so-called Robin Hood tax established, which would basically tax financial transactions. Whether or not you think that's a good idea is besides the point, but there's clearly an issue here about wealth redistribution being necessary in this country. From your own statements, you're saying they have too much money, and that's not a good thing. So are you saying that the wealthy have too much money and nothing should be done about it? Because if you think something should be done about it, then yes, you're saying that they need to be paying more money, and the poor, the 99%, need more of what the 1% have. That's in effect what you're saying, so I'll stand by my damn statement there. You also, again, try and say it's a truthy stat. It's a true stat. It's not a truthy stat. How did I characterize the 47% in an attempt to write off any action that the 99% may take, quote, the 99% may take and that they should be written off because they're lazy free riders? I clearly said they need to be getting more help. That was a big part of multiple videos I've done recently, James. You know what? It is a huge deal that they don't pay income tax because it is questionable for people to say we should spend this money from the general revenue stream on things when I don't pay money into this. That is a question here, and matters of fairness do play into that. But what I've said, though, is that I don't care if they can't pay money in, they still need help. I don't care if it's not fair. Even if there was an objective definition of fair and it said the rich are paying more than their fair share and the 47% aren't paying enough, I wouldn't care because I care about efficacy. I care about actually helping people more than I care about, well, is this fair or not? That's been the entire fucking point. Drop the fair rhetoric is what I've been saying. And now you're saying, well, no one's talking about fair share when apparently you thought they were in your first reply to me. And that stat isn't put out there just to halt OWS like you claim. That stat's been out there for years. It used to be about 50%, but the numbers kind of got down a bit. That stat's existed for a long time. It's not being put out there just to screw with you and your friends and your movement. That's not why I quoted it. That's not, well, some people might quote it for that, but that's usually not why it's been brought up. It's actually a very important question if you're dealing with taxation and spending issues. It's something to consider, James. Maybe it's inconvenient for you to consider it, but it's something to consider. Because you should consider things that might hurt your cause or might not exactly play well for your narrative. I think it's an important fact to consider that 47% of people don't pay a federal income tax. That doesn't mean they shouldn't be getting benefits, and I listed a bunch of benefits they should be getting in multiple videos, and I think they should get more benefits. I think they should be getting universal health care, for fuck's sake. It's still something to consider, and I'm sorry that you don't agree with me considering facts and statistics. I'm sorry you have a problem with me referencing things, James. Next time, I will do a better job in not referencing true statistics. So, on to Jennifer Fox. You're right, James. You actually are right on this. I should have posted the links there. I did assume that you had been following the story because you had made a huge deal of the story. I guess that's not the case, or you want me to specify specifically, wow, talk about unnecessary language, what I was talking about. I did post them in an earlier video, but I'll reiterate this here. So her story about how pregnant she was kept changing. First it was 3 months, and it was 2 months. She refused to show medical records to anyone, multiple journalists. Her story about past events involving apparent police-caused miscarriages have failed. She claimed she was 3 months pregnant in September. with babies, and then one of them died, but one of them didn't, and now this one's dead, apparently, but was still only 3 months pregnant, even though it would be 5 or 6 months pregnant. So there's a lot of issues surrounding her credibility as a witness. Now, one angry queer, who is the person who broke this story in the blogosphere, that then, by the end of the day or the next day, had been even on Washington Post and Forbes, I might add, he says that Fox has shown him discharge papers saying that she did have a miscarriage, a retained miscarriage, so the fetus is still inside of her, but it's dead, I guess. The point is, though, that none of this was known when it happened. No one had any idea what was known. No one knew, for a matter of fact, whether or not she was pregnant, or two, whether or not she had a miscarriage. And what I had been saying was that we should hold on until we know about this, because if it turns out to be false, it's going to cause a shitstorm. It doesn't look good when people spread around false rumors, like the rumors that were occurring during the London riots. People were saying various businesses had been burned down and sacked, or cops had killed a girl, and all this other stuff that was going on that turned out not to be true. What I want is people to take a step back and actually get the facts out there before, I don't know, sharpening the knives and brandishing the pitchforks. Which is why I said, even if her story turns out to be 100% true, I'm still right in my stance that we should hold the fuck on before leaping without any confirmation of these stories, because a lot of them turn out to be false, and it's not good when false stories get reported as fact. I don't like this, James. But, you know, you were running, the point, you know, and you were running around screaming that the cops are killing children. Several of your friends, by the way, were posting that we should kill all the fucking pigs and send them to the slaughterhouse and start murdering police officers around the country. I'm going to cover the rest of that. Not that specifically, but I'll cover the rest of the Fox stuff at the end of the video. The person who sent me the message knows, I guess, I respond to this then. Sorry, I don't have any editing software on my computer. I had to format, so this is going to be in here, the small break when I replied to someone on Skype. So you also claim we're living under martial law, quote, when it comes to expressing our First Amendment rights. Bullshit. Just flat out bullshit. You don't have the right to occupy a park indefinitely. Permits are constitutional and legally valid. You don't have the right to blockade streets. You don't have the right to blockade a port. Full stop. Now, that doesn't mean that police brutality is okay. In fact, on my Facebook, I wrote a very long thing about why I don't think, well, obviously, why I don't think police brutality is acceptable, and that it's fucking sickening. But it's not a First Amendment issue at that point. It's a police brutality issue. Now, if Occupy Wall Street or any of the Occupy camps have applied for permits legally and met all the criteria for the permits, and then were denied on a basis of based on the basis of their political message, I would be up in arms. I'm seeing someone who thinks the fucking Westboro Baptist Church should be able to protest goddamn funerals of soldiers. And everyone here knows how much of a goddamn defense hawk I am, and how pro-America military I am. And I think they should be able to sit there and do that. So let's talk about the Oakland port blockade. That's not the only specific thing I brought up, by the way. I also don't like it when they blockade streets like in Portland, but tell me, if this was supposedly an act of solidarity with the longshoremen striking, why weren't the longshoremen striking? Why weren't the truckers striking? Why were they actually still trying to offload and load cargo on and off of these trucks from the ships, etc., while this is going on before they sent the workers home at 3:30? Truckers are still trying to get in there. People were still trying to load stuff on and off of them. Why weren't they striking if it was in solidarity? Furthermore, why is the International Longshore and Warehouse Union, as well as the local chapter, both stated their opposition to the proposed West Coast port strike, or blockade, I should say, that people are trying to do in 4 days to shut down all the West Coast ports, or the major ones at least? Maybe if you wanted to, you know, show solidarity with these people, you shouldn't be fucking with the workers trying to do their job and actually listen to them and what they're saying and what they want. You know, they're saying, like, hey guys, please don't shut down our ports. From what I understand, this is basically a fight between unions, because there's the one union, the ILWU, and there's another, the company wants to use another union and their workers to do something. So there's a fight here between mainly workers and labor unions as well as the corporation. You know, and the ILWU does support Occupy, as do most labor unions, and that's fine, but they're also saying don't shut down the fucking ports. The ILWU released a memo saying, quote, "To be clear, the ILWU, the Coast Longshore Division, and the Local 21 are not coordinating independently or in conjunction with any self-proclaimed organization or group to shut down any port or terminal, particularly as it relates to our dispute with EGT and Longview. The ILWU shares the Occupy Wall Street movement's concerns about corporate abuses and the future of the middle class, but we must be clear that any actions organized by outside groups, including the proposed December 12th shutdown of various terminals on the West Coast, have not been vetted by our union's democratically led process. Only ILWU members or their elected representatives can authorize job actions on behalf of the union, and any decisions made by groups outside of the union's democratic process do not hold water regardless of the intent." So they don't want you to keep shutting down these ports. So don't talk to me about solidarity, please. The police brutality thing, again, it exists. It's a huge fucking problem. I've stated my opinions on why this problem exists. There are a lot of thuggish police officers out there. You're not going to see me denying that. And I think most of them should lose their fucking badge. I made a few Facebook posts, like I said, about how shitty the police have been, whilst also calling out people like Voctor who think that Obama should have sent the military in there, which I found rather hilarious, since people are sitting here talking about martial law in police states, while wanting, well, some of them at least, want the military to be sent in to deal with this problem. That would be rather bad, and I don't think Voctor's views are reflective of most people who support OWS, but I'm just pointing that out there. And that's kind of the reason why I don't like hyping up news stories, because it can lead to shit like this and people pushing for really bad things that will get a lot of people hurt. As for drug dealers, I'm fine with legalization, so yeah, I don't doubt that there are heroin dealers that are basically decent people just trying to feed their family. Cool, whatever. And you say you're not going to get behind the Oakland Police Department. Good! You shouldn't get behind the fucking Oakland Police Department. They were fucking horrible shutting down Occupy Oakland. I don't fucking support what they did to Scott Olson. You know, no one should really be supporting them until a serious review of policy procedure is done towards anyone who's acted out of line, loses their fucking badge at the very least, if not be criminally prosecuted. It's one of the reasons why I keep harping on voting, especially in local elections, because no one does. No one fucking does this. You want change? I mean, get people on the city council or in the mayor's office who will actually make sure that police officers have proper training and know how to respond to largely non-violent crowds. Hint, it doesn't involve the use of tear gas or tasers or beanbag bullets. If you have to arrest people blocking a fucking road or a port, I have no problem with this. Someone who lives in a major metropolitan area, I don't really have a problem with people being arrested if they're blockading traffic, but do it like they did in DC yesterday, peacefully and without violence. They got the people and arrested them without incident after letting them blockade K Street for a few hours and fucking with traffic. And I'm pretty sure, you know, the people in the 99% who ride the buses were very pleased with how fucked up their traffic was at that point. The get out and vote stuff. Every single time I bring up voting, people tell me the system is broken, there's no point in doing it, because they can't possibly affect any change, so why even bother? Because there's too much money in politics, which there is, but they act like there's nothing that can be done. And my response is, well, if you're saying nothing can be done to fix the system and get money out of politics, you're basically just saying that it's over and done with. I mean, at that point, the political process is dead if you say you can't get anything done. I'm saying get out there and try. You can completely fuck over a lot of the vested corporate interests by just forcing out their people in the primaries. Why not do that? Again, less than 20% of people vote in primaries, so fucking show up and vote. And I didn't misunderstand what you wanted me to improve. I know you meant Occupy Wall Street, but I care about fixing the system itself. I don't really care about your movement. I agree with a lot of the principles. I don't agree with how you're going about it, and I care more about the system, and I'm going to spend my time and energy on what I think is valuable, or on what annoys me the most, like this. My point, to show that people have been aware of this for a while, and have been, is that contrary to what some people for OWS think, OWS is not responsible for suddenly bringing these issues to light. They've managed to get people mobilized. Good, I guess. Don't necessarily like what they've done since being mobilized, but and I'll probably never will, but at least if they get out there and start campaigning, now that they have a shitload of people running around, mobilized, doing whatever, occupying stuff, and have built up a very decent grassroots network that they could be using to do the election stuff I've been talking about for a while, I think they should be getting out there, campaigning, voting, and getting all the stuff they want to get done accomplished. I want people to campaign on these issues. Why do you think I make videos and talk about things from like eliminating the payroll tax cap to cutting DoD's budget to means testing Medicare and Social Security, the eliminating stuff, even simple stuff like sugar tariffs, and some farm subsidies, or most farm subsidies, to campaign finance reform? Why do I write papers on this stuff or argue with them about people? It's because I care about the issues and I want them to change. Now, back to the Jennifer Fox thing, and this is what really... Okay, you flat out say you're comfortable hyping up stories and basically lying about them in some instances because of the lack of coverage, despite the fact that the Fox story was run by both the Washington Post and Forbes on the 22nd of November. Roughly, I think the next day, or if not that night, when it was broken by The Stranger and a lot of other blogs, the mainstream media did report on Scott Olson. Not only that, they even linked to fucking YouTube videos in the Washington Post, at least. You can actually go and look what happened. So you're sitting there willing to lie, or at least grossly distort the truth or what we actually know about a situation, because people aren't paying attention to you or your movement, or there are people like me who don't necessarily agree with what you're doing. Because people, or the mainstream media, or whatever, are going to question your movement, you think it's acceptable to lie about it, or to distort the truth. And this is why I can't respect you or anyone else who shares that opinion, because that's bullshit. I'm sorry. I don't fucking like it when Glenn Buck does it, I don't like it when Fox does it, and I definitely don't like it when even people I agree with do it. Why do you think that as a conservative, most of my videos have actually been aimed at other conservatives? Because they lie and distort the truth. So I'm supposed to be nicer to, you know, the other side than I am to my own side? I really find it interesting that you're suddenly questioning my dislike of people, you and a lot of other people, by the way, suddenly upset with the fact that I care about the truth. Yet every time I called out Fox News or the Tea Party or Glenn Beck or Wild Bill for America or Pat Condell or any of these other like ultra right-wing assholes for doing what you're doing now, I got a lot of support then, but now suddenly, because I care about the truth as it applies to your movement and what you want to get done, I'm some sort of, like some of your commenters have said, some sort of fascist, authoritarian asshole who hates the people and doesn't want anything done, which of course is why I support things like universal health care, greatly increasing the taxes on the rich and redistributing wealth to the middle, to reestablish the middle class and to help the poor people out so they're not in fucking fear of losing their homes. They can actually better themselves, better their lives, and take care of their families. So yeah, I think I'm going to leave this here. I really don't have any much more to say about this. So yes, James, this is another 23-minute video.